Section 7 of the Great Chicago Fire, by various authors. The Chicago Fire and the Insurance Companies. Part 7. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Great Fires of History. Among the great fires of modern history, the mind naturally reverts to the conflagration in London in 1666 as the most destructive. Relatively such it was, for it continued 4 days and nights, and consumed nearly 5/6 of the city within its walls. Yet although more than 13,000 houses of the description then common in the thickly settled portions of the city were destroyed, the area laid waste was only 436 acres, or less than a square mile, while the aggregate loss did not exceed $60,000,000. The city of Moscow, several times before grievously afflicted by fires, was made almost a smoking waste upon its occupation by the French in 1812, when, by order of the Russian governor Rostopchin, it was set on fire in 500 places at once, and 11,840 houses burned to the ground, besides palaces and churches. Hamburg, in Germany, was visited by a fire on the 5th of May, 1842, which continued 4 days and destroyed 1/3 of the city. In the United States, the most memorable conflagration, prior to that which has just devastated Chicago, was the great fire in New York in 1835, which extended from east of Broadway and south or below Wall Street, destroying 648 stores, the Merchants' Exchange, and the South Dutch Church. Loss estimated at $20,000,000. Other great fires occurred in Charleston, South Carolina, April 27th, 1838, when 1,158 buildings, covering 145 acres, were burned. In New York, again, September 6th, 1839, loss $10,200,000. In Pittsburgh, April 10th, 1845, 1,000 buildings, loss $6,000,000. In Quebec, May 28th, 1845, 1,500 buildings, and in June of the same year 1,300 buildings. In New York, July 19th, 1845, 302 stores and dwellings, loss $6,000,000. In Albany, September 9th, 1848, 24 acres burned over and 300 buildings destroyed, loss $3,000,000. In St. Louis, July 9th, 1849, 350 buildings, loss $3,000,000. In San Francisco, May 3rd, 1851, 2,500 buildings, loss $3,500,000. And again, June 22nd, 1851, 500 buildings, loss $3,000,000. And at Portland, Maine, July 4th, 1866, when 10,000 people were rendered homeless and 15 millions of property destroyed. What is spared to Chicago? From the Chicago Tribune. Our columns have been so extensively occupied during the past week with reports of the enormous losses of life and property in the late fire, that there is some danger that the damage sustained will be overestimated. True, we have seen 2,500 acres in the most central portion of the city swept bare, 20,000 buildings destroyed, and 100,000 persons rendered homeless, the total pecuniary loss being not less than $300,000,000. But we still have a great deal left. We may roughly estimate the situation as follows: above 50,000 persons have left the city, population remaining 280,000. 5 grain elevators were burned, with 1,600,000 bushels of grain, leaving us with 11 grain warehouses intact, containing 5,000,000 bushels. 1/2 of our stocks of pork products were burned up, with the same proportion of flour. Of lumber, 50,000,000 feet were burned, The stock remaining is 240 million feet. Of coal, 80,000 tons were burned up. We have 79,000 tons on hand. Our stock of leather was decreased 1/4, the value of that burned up being $95 millions. The greater portion of the stocks of groceries, dry goods, and boots and shoes were burned up, with more than 1/2 the ready-made clothing, but the quantities destroyed were scarcely equal to more than a 3 weeks' supply, and are now being rapidly replaced. Not more than 10% of the currency was destroyed by the fire. We have 30,000 houses left standing, and our real estate could not burn up. A careful average of these larger items, with smaller ones that need not be enumerated, shows that the city of Chicago has suffered a loss of not less than 20 nor more than 25% of her total assets, real and personal. The loss is a great one, but so far from irretrievable that we may confidently hope to see a return to former prosperity ere long. The ratio of increase during the past 34 years has averaged 10.5% per annum. This rate would restore the status of a month ago within 3 years. Making every due allowance for the terrible setback experienced, there can be no doubt that 5 years hence at most, the exhibit of population, wealth, commerce, and manufactures will be greater than a month ago. The exact area of the conflagration. From the Chicago Journal. Careful measurements and calculations of the area of the burnt district of the city place its length from its starting point to its place of ending at 4½ miles, and its average width a little more than 1 mile. Along the south side lake shore, however, and westward 5 blocks, Harrison Street is the southern limit of the conflagration, and the distance from that street to Fullerton Avenue, its northern limit, is only 3½ miles. The point of the fire's beginning on the west side was about 1 mile south of Harrison Street, southwesterly. The number of acres laid waste is not far from 2,300. A pretty careful computation places the number of buildings of all kinds destroyed at 18,000, of which at least 1,500 were substantial business structures. The actual total of the pecuniary losses is estimated at $300 millions, but no fair estimate that we have yet seen or heard of places the grand total below $200 millions. We still believe the latter will cover all the losses. End of section 7.